All right, good afternoon. If you can hear me, open up your chat and let me know that you're here. I'm Dr. Raiford, and we are going to go ahead and get started this afternoon and learn a little bit about autism and available resources to support it. Hi, Julie, I see you on there. Beth, good to see you. Hi, Sonya. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started then. I'm going to be flipping back and forth between a PowerPoint. Wow, a lot of familiar names I'm seeing. Good to see you all on here. I'm going to be flipping back and forth between my lovely face and a PowerPoint that I presented for you. This PowerPoint will be archived through the BASC website so that you have access to download it if you like and access the links that are going to be in here. All right, let's get started. All right, so as you all know, this webinar was scheduled for us to go ahead and discuss resources that are available to support those who work with students who have autism or perhaps family who have children who have autism. This was made possible with a grant from the South Carolina Department of Education, Office of Special Education Services, and the University of South Carolina Southeastern School Behavioral Health Community Program, otherwise known as BASC. And this is called Autism Information and Support Resources. As we're working through this again, if you have questions, please feel free to share them on the chat site. And as we're going back and forth, I'll try to fill in for the questions that you're asking. And like I said, I work for the South Carolina Department of Education, and our mission is to assure that we are preparing students for college, career, and citizenship. Likewise, in our own office, the Office of Special Education Services, we're assuring that we're supporting all students with a free and appropriate public education, recognizing that our students with disabilities are general education students first. When we look at the profile of the South Carolina graduate, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen before, working with autism, you look at some of these skills that we're trying to teach our students, and you see a number of those are challenge areas for our students with autism. When we're looking at self-direction and interpersonal skills, looking at creativity, the collaboration and teamwork, those are all very difficult areas for individuals with autism that make it difficult for them to participate often in larger classrooms, to keep up with the class, to have those peer relationships, and then to move on forward to college and careers after that. So we're going to be focusing on some supports that help support that too. So today we're going to learn briefly about some of the characteristics of autism, particularly looking at that spectrum and what is meant by that. And then we're going to look at the evidence-based practices that support autism, and then actually talk about what resources are available and where you can find them. So what is autism exactly? It was developed as a group of neurological and developmental disorders. We first recognized it in 1944. Asperger's about 30 years later. We really did not start diagnosing kids, however, much later. Even now in schools, we hesitate to give them that autism label, so to speak, until they are around 9 years old, in which we change those IEPs from developmental delay to something more specific. Initially, autism was thought to be a form of schizophrenia, or perhaps mental retardation, as we called it then, or caused by refrigerator mothers, which meant that your mother didn't love you enough. She didn't socialize with you. She was cold towards you. And that's one of the reasons there's a lot of guilt felt by mothers nowadays to say, did I cause this? And as we know, we're not sure of the cause of autism, but mothers did not cause autism. Very wide spectrum in terms of intelligence and functional levels, and we're going to see how that looks exactly. The DSM-5 changes the actual definition of autism several times. It has. Autism itself used to be a separate disability. We now have an umbrella disorder entitled autism spectrum disorder that includes those 4 disorders that are all very similar, but vary in degrees of how severe they are. So Asperger's, autism, childhood degenerative disorder, which you don't see much in schools. That's a very debilitating form. And PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, are the 4 disorders that fall under the umbrella term autism spectrum disorder. When we're looking at statistics, we used to think it was a lot more common in boys than girls. We're finding out now that girls actually are not diagnosed as often as boys unless they manifest behaviors that are as severe or more severe than the boys show us. And that prevalence has risen from 1 in 152 kids born to 1 in 59 in 50 years. In South Carolina, in a 5-year period, we've about doubled our number of students who receive services for autism. We can diagnose as early as 2 years. They're working on some diagnosis to do earlier than that. Most are not actually diagnosed until actually 4 years old. And in schools, again, we don't give that eligibility till they're usually around 9 years old, which means a lot of times our kids are missing maybe up to 7 years of therapies, early intervention that could change their whole trajectory, change their whole outcome. That early intervention is key. It's very expensive to pay for the therapies that your child might need when you have autism, because you're looking at not only behavioral services or therapies, you're also possibly looking at occupational therapy, physical therapy, any range of supports that you might need for your child and the family, and that can be quite expensive. However, almost half of the kids with autism have average or above average intelligence, which is not to say that we have a lot of savants running around, those who can do very complex math problems in a few seconds, but it does mean that a lot of our kids who have autism can participate in the general ed curriculum, go on and have meaningful, full lives with careers, independent living, but we just have to have the resources and support in place to get them to that point. When we look at the positive traits of individuals with autism, there are a lot of them. And some of them you probably recognize, very strong visual skills. That's why we use a lot of visual support with individuals with autism. That ease in understanding things that are with steps, concrete, following rules, remembering things with great detail, rote memories. That's why counting, ABCs, facts are very easy for them. Can be very good with, but can also lead to some problems in transition. The student who loves to be on the iPad and then has to get off the iPad may lead to some struggles there. Intense concentration or focus, we're going to talk about how that can really impede their learning. But a lot of other strong skills that you see that you can embed in how you instruct a student with autism that really help them to understand what you're trying to teach them. All right, so this is a graphic that I absolutely love. It is not my own. I found it on the GAO government website, and it really explains what those characteristics of autism look like. I like using this with parents because it gives them a pretty visual picture of the characteristics that their child might be dealing with in areas of struggle. When we look at the green is intense focus and interest, this is the child who may struggle with focusing on dinosaurs all the time, or sports facts, space, can have anything that they stay with and don't want to move from in terms of having conversation or studying, or again, on an iPad or computer. And then you have the blue area, which is those sensitivities. So about 45% of individuals with autism actually have a sensory processing disorder, but most just have some areas of sensory challenges. And we can have sensory challenges with any of our 7 senses. So a child may not like noise in the classroom or in the home. They may not like proximity, too many people close to them, sitting by them, standing by them, crowds of people, perhaps in a cafeteria or on an outing with the family in a restaurant. You might not like have a child who does not like the sound of the air conditioning clicking on. And so you have to account for those sensitivities once you figure it out. Trying to see if everyone can hear me here. Can everyone hear me? Let me know if you can hear me on here. Okay, just want to make sure. Audio sometimes goes out. All right, I'm going to try and raise my sound just a little bit and see if that helps some. All right, let me know if that's a little bit better. I'm getting from most of you that you can hear. All right, we're going to keep on going then. And I'll keep jumping back and forth to make sure I'm checking on the questions that you all have. All right, let's talk about routine and repetition. That's one of those areas, particularly in school. We often say that school is one of those most stable environments. And actually, for the person who is sensitive to routine and repetition, school is such a transitional environment. You're transitioning from home to school. When you get there, you may be transitioning between teachers. You're transitioning between activities in the classroom. So you might go from something that you like to something that you don't like. You're transitioning from the classroom to the cafeteria, which are 2 very different environments. So the student.
Dr. Raiford, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not seeing your PowerPoint on the screen right now.
Are you not?
No, ma'am.
Let me go back and share with you. Let's make sure it's sharing. All right. Should be up there. All right. Can you see it now?
I sure can. It's back on there.
All right, good. So again, we talk about transition being difficult for a child. This can be one of the most difficult areas, particularly when you're looking at schools and the student might need a lot of support in this area. This is one of those areas that if you have a family who is going out somewhere and taking the rest of the family with them, there may be a lot of struggle that the student doesn't want to leave the home because they might be going to a place that's different out of their normal routine, which can be very scary for them. And then we go to the red, which is the communication difficulties. And this is really such a wide spectrum because you have students with autism who speak at a higher level that we speak and understand, and you have those who may not speak at all, nonverbal, and so they might use grunts or sounds. They might use a picture system to communicate, or even sign language, depending on their academic function level. And then you have social impediments, which some people get confused sometimes between social communication and social impediments. Your social impediments is actually your ability to kind of fit in with others. It's that ability to join in conversation, to start a conversation, to end a conversation. Surprisingly, that can be difficult. It's that piece where you kind of look quirky because you may want to talk about what you want to talk about, and not everybody else wants to hear that. Or you may continue talking and not allow others to ask questions, or might ignore those questions. You might not want to join a group because it makes you too uncomfortable. Oftentimes, individuals with autism will call everyone friend, even if it's someone that they just met. They may come home and say, I have a new friend, even though for us that might be more of an acquaintance. But it can be very difficult to establish those relationships. And as you get older into middle school, high school, and beyond, relationships become very complex, and that becomes a very, very difficult area. And often individuals with autism can become very isolated. When you look at how deep this disorder can be, anyone can have any challenge in any of these 5 areas. The depth comes in when you're talking about how much of a challenge they have in that area. So if we look at the first student on here, student A, this child has severe challenges when it comes to intense focus, but does not have challenges in communication. So this might be the child who really likes SpongeBob and can tell you all about SpongeBob all the time in SpongeBob's voice. Every episode, everything that they do centers around SpongeBob. But then you have the second student who has a lot of sensitivity challenges, and they also have challenges in communication. So this is the child who might be really disturbed because their sock is rolling down their ankle, but they don't have the verbal skills to tell you that. This is the child who may be very cold in a room, but you're not cold, but again, can't tell you in the way that you would expect that they're cold. And so often this might turn into a meltdown or crying or shutting down, which is really important to recognize that everybody needs a form of communication. But as these pictures show, a person can have severe challenges in one area and not severe challenges in another. And those can be in any form or format. That's why when we say, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, because it's so varied. And this really lends to it being difficult to support individuals in the classroom when you don't know them well, because an IEP says that this child is autism, does not tell you exactly what this child truly looks like, who this person is. So it's important to really get to know this individual in order to be there to provide the support that they need. Then you have another little bit added, because it's rare that someone just has autism. Often there is comorbidity. Comorbidity is when you have basically a main disorder, but you have other disorders that have been diagnosed as well. And a lot of these do come with autism. If you ever get the chance to look at an individual psych report from the IEP, you might see medications that indicate that they have some sleep disorders, which can lend to how they feel when they come in the morning, because they may not be sleeping well at night. You have those who have attention deficit, which can be a very busy child, particularly if they have ADHD. You have a lot of seizures with epilepsy. Another one is the anxiety and depression. Anxiety is an aspect that comes with autism anyway, particularly when you're looking at some of those social impediments. And as they get older, that anxiety can build. The older a person with autism becomes and does not have support or outlets, things that they need to keep them um, busy at home, to keep them involved in good things, depression creeps in. And depression creeps in, which leads to more serious things. Suicide is on the rise for individuals with autism. And so we really have to look out for all of these pieces of the comorbidity and make sure that there is support in all of these areas, not just when they're little, but as they're growing into adulthood and beyond. And we have a lot of kids on the spectrum who are gifted and talented, and they can academically participate in those gifted and talented classes. However, it's some of those social skills that stop them from being able to participate, because those classes typically revolve around a lot of teamwork, a lot of playing certain roles, and a lot of individual work. And that might be a difficult area for an individual with autism to do well in. They need a lot of support in a gifted and talented class often. All right, so what do we have for individuals who have autism? There are a lot of resources out there. And so you really have to narrow down what's available, what's good information, and know exactly what you're looking for. One of the important things to know is that, particularly in school, that there are evidence-based practices specifically for autism. These interventions are shown to be effective. In 2014, the National Professional Development Center classified these interventions based upon a very rigorous criteria. The difference between what you're going to see and having heard these words before is how they are implemented. For autism, they are very clearly defined, very clear definitions on how they should be implemented, and they should be implemented with fidelity, which means you are also using data to assure that you are using the correct evidence-based practice for each person, and that you are following how they should be done right, and then checking your data to see if they're really working. So there has to be a lot of fidelity in using a list of half of those evidence-based supports. And again, you might recognize some of those words in there. Exercise, for example, is an evidence-based support. Modeling, we all model, but it's how you do it that's important. You'll see the FBA, which is usually left to the school psychologist to do, but actually who the teacher, assistants, and families should all be a part of creating. Involving peers in supporting individuals with autism, and definitely involving the family, are important in those evidence-based practices. You also see prompting. A lot of people prompt, and there's actually a way to prompt so that you don't develop a prompt-dependent student. Social skills training is very important, as is task analysis, and task analysis is embedded into a lot of this, which is breaking things down into very small steps, sometimes baby steps, so that a person with autism can learn. We talked about one of their characteristics being they're good with following structure, of following steps. That's that task analysis. Visual support, we also talked about, video modeling and reinforcement. So I'm actually going to show you where you can go to get training modules on these different evidence-based supports for free. So we're going to talk about resources available in training and education. We're going to talk about state and community agencies, and specifically educator needs. So I'm going to be flipping back and forth to some different websites and answering questions that you have of those as we go along. All right, so before you go to your resources, ask yourself a few questions. Do you know what you're looking for? Because again, that spectrum is so wide and deep, and because you're going to be coming at it from a very specific perspective, whether you're an educator or a parent or an individual who has autism themselves, determine what you're looking for. And that might be difficult for the person who is just trying to learn because you're not sure where to start. But see, are you looking for emotional support? Are you looking for evaluation or medical services? Teachers, are you looking for training, education? Are you looking for recreation for family or for the individual who has autism? As you get older, are you looking for care, living arrangements, options, assistive technology, different therapies, finances to support you, or legal guidance? And then a couple questions that families need to ask, and for educators working with families, ask these questions of your family so that you can better help them as well. One is, do you have transportation out of your area? When you're looking at services, sometimes they're not always available in every area. So can you get to the services needed, or can they get to you? Do you need any of these programs to be supported by your private insurance? Do they take Medicaid? Or do you really need something that's not going to cost you anything? Do you mind someone coming in your home? Because a lot of these agencies, these groups, can get with you to talk about options and to give you support. And do you have access to Wi-Fi, the internet, in order to apply for services? So many services now are available through the internet where you have to fill out the applications. And sometimes part of the challenge is getting access to those applications and then being able to actually maneuver those systems, which can be complex themselves. All right, so let's look at a few of these different options. I'm going to go first to one of my favorites. Somebody asked me, can you have the PowerPoint? Yes, PowerPoint will be made available. Because Basque is going to archive this. And if you still don't get it, I'll make sure that you have my email. I'll be glad to send the information to you. All right, I'm going to share one of the first websites that is, again, one of my favorites. All right, we're going to go to, this is called the IRIS website, IRIS Center. It's through Vanderbilt University. This is one of the resources for free training modules. And as you can see, this first one is Autism Spectrum Disorder Part 1. That gives you an overview of what autism is. And then it takes you to the Part 2, which is the evidence-based practices that I just shared with you. And it takes you through each of them, explaining how to implement them with fidelity. It provides resources that you can print so that you can take them and use them in the classroom. It provides assessments. And it also has some other opportunities in other areas that you can learn from as well. I like this website because you all not used as options for you in terms of your certification. But it does give you a variety of ways to take some of these modules that you can do here. Another one is the Affirm models, which are very similar to the IRIS website. And Affirm will also take you through all of the different evidence-based practices one by one, along with understanding how to deal with behavior in terms of data tracking, applying the correct evidence-based practice, how to use reinforcement. As you can see, it has all of these different evidence-based practices one by one, broken down into separate modules. That is a hard website to beat, and it also offers a variety of certifications. Are you still able to see the websites that I'm going to? If you can't, let me know.
No, ma'am, I cannot see the website any longer.
I just took it down just now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're going back up to it. Okay. So let's go to another one. All right, can you see the website now that I'm on?
Sure can.
All right, good. So we're going to Teach now. And some of you may have heard of Teach. Teach is a different kind of program. They do have online training modules. They do have an actual certification program. It does cost money to go to this, but you can also go to the program in North Carolina, the University of North Carolina, to participate in their autism certification program. This is also a really good website for parents because it has a number of services for their kids as they get older. They have employment services. So an individual who has autism that is able to and looking to work, they have an employment program where that individual can go meet with them and they help to match up jobs and perhaps give them the skills that they need to work. They also have transitional programs, a post-secondary education program, again, to support that to have a high school diploma. They also have a project search program, which is in a lot of our schools, which deals with employment again. And then you're looking at the Carolina Living and Learning Center. That is actually like a home for individuals who have autism. So these are certified facilities, which is what you want to look for when you're looking at a facility, because there are not a lot of residential facilities that actually have specialty in autism. A lot of them will deal with behavior or disabilities in general, but University of North Carolina has facilities that are dedicated specifically to autism. So that is one that you want to share not only with other educators to participate in training themselves, but also for parents to see what's available for their students. Okay, we're going to look back at a couple other ones, going back and forth. Okay, so the Autism Society also has modules that are available, most of them free as well. And the Thompson Center for Autism and Neurodevelopment Disorders has some training modules again. These are really good ones. These are vetted. These are mostly university programs. This is good information. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff out of there that is not. A lot of stuff based on people's opinion or their own personal experiences, which can be good to learn from, but you want to make sure that as an educator that you're using those evidence-based practices that have been designed specifically to work with individuals with autism. All right, so let's look at some resources specifically in South Carolina. A lot of parents are not aware of this resource, and it's kind of surprising to me. It's been around for quite some time, and it's an amazing lifelong resource for individuals with autism. It's DDSN, or South Carolina's Disabilities and Special Needs Programs. I'm going to take us to that website now. So DDSN has offices in every region, and there is the main office in Columbia. And this is such an important resource because it is funded by a variety of different finances, but it does not charge parents. But it offers so much that it's very important that parents have access to this as soon as they get a diagnosis for their child. If a parent gets their eligibility in a school, DDSN will still come out and do an evaluation on your child so they can determine what services they qualify for. And their services include everything from respite service. So if you have a child who is very intensive need and parents, grandparents perhaps care for them and they don't get a break, DDSN can pay for someone to come who is qualified to stay with your child, provide good care so that you can get a break for a moment, breathe. That's very important in terms of caretakers. They also provide services in terms of hygiene type of care. So an individual who struggles to take a shower, wash their hair, they have an individual who can come in and support in the house like this, prepare simple meals for them. They have services in which they contract with different agencies throughout the state to provide therapies of different kind depending on what you need. And they also remodeling in your house if necessary for safety reasons. An individual with autism might have some occupational therapy needs, physical therapy needs, and they might pay to have a bathroom safety-proof, bars on the wall, a walk-in shower perhaps, so that the individual with autism is living in a safe area. So it's a pretty simple process in terms of applying online. They assign a caseworker to you who meets with you regularly, will come to your house and sees what your child needs, actually works and talks with you and your child to see exactly what is needed and builds upon that as they get older. A lot of adult services, they can look at daycare services, living arrangements. So it is an invaluable resource if parents go ahead and access this website and start early with it. Another good resource. Bye, Michelle. I'll see you next time. Have fun with the Boy Scouts. Another good resource is, and I'm kind of partial to this one because we developed it, is the virtual library. And we call it the Autism Spectrum Disorder Virtual Library. It is on the state website, South Carolina Department of Education's website. And what we did for this one was we have a task force, an autism task force that has members statewide on it. And we developed a library that is accessible to anybody who wants information on autism. We've broken it down into categories: academic, behavior resources, books and films on autism, community agencies, early intervention, just a variety of areas where you can get information that has all been vetted. We have an event calendar in which agencies can apply to post recreational type of events, educational students to go and learn about autism on their level, and a place where you can submit for questions to be answered if you want to learn more, add a resource, or have some concerns about things that are going on in the autism community, and we will respond to those. So, like I said, I am very partial to this, but it is a very useful website that we're constantly updating and adding new supports to as well. And along with that, on that website is another resource that we developed to go along with it, and we call it the resource book. This again is a vetted resource, and what we did was put together a listing of as many as we could find agencies, state agencies, community agencies, programs that support autism. And it is literally a book. You can print it out as well. But what it does is break down statewide and by county, by region, different agencies that serve individuals with autism. And we also listed in there what type of services they offered. And we tried to give parents information on phone numbers, emails, ages served where that was available, so that you can go to the book, you can look for your area and see exactly what is offered in terms of actual agencies in your area that focus on autism. Again, this is another one that we are constantly putting new information in and changing out. We want to make sure that the things that are on there are actually still available. So we're constantly updating that one as well. So those are three resources very specific to South Carolina, but they can be shared outside of the state as well. But that resource book is very handy for parents, particularly if you live in an area and you're not sure it is. When you talk about state agencies, almost all the agencies listed on this page have offices beyond Columbia, South Carolina, and reach across the state in terms of services. We talk about DDSN, our own South Carolina Department of Education, which is in Columbia, along with the Office of Special Education Services, will go out to regions to do training for schools and other groups. We also have an ombudsman in the office, so that for parents, if you're struggling with decisions made in your, you can see an ombudsman who may offer some suggestions or offer the opportunity for a facilitated IEP if that is deemed appropriate. And our ombudsman is an incredible person, Ms. Lynette Cox, and her information is available on the state website as well. Department of Mental Health is a great resource because a lot of times families need a lot of support, just mentally, emotionally, when you are a caregiver. And the Department of Mental Health can offer you opportunities for that emotional support. And then you have the South Carolina Assistive Technology Program, which is again one of those kind of little known programs. They're wonderful for offering support in assistive technology if your student uses a communication device, for example. And they also have a loaner program. So sometimes these devices can be rather expensive. There is a loaner program where you might get access to the device that your child needs at no cost. So being able to visit them, they all have information on websites if you go to them, and they can show you how to access their services as well. All right, in terms of some other agencies, these are typically nonprofit agencies. And each nonprofit agencies, these are all listed also in that resource book that I showed you. They all have very specific purposes. So again, knowing what you're looking for helps you to kind of define what you need. Protection and advocacy. Sometimes a parent who is uncomfortable with the language used in IEPs, a lot of times acronyms are used and assessment scores, things like that are used, or you may not be sure what you're looking for in an IEP meeting. Protection and advocacy might provide you an advocate that can help you kind of work through those discussions, offer some advice, offer some opportunities for consideration. Southern Connection of South Carolina has a lot of opportunities that offer support for families, a lot of parent trainings, which are very important, as does the South Carolina Autism Society, which also has a protection and advocacy program too. Project Hope is an amazing agency, and they offer a lot of therapy services in the upstate area, in Greenwood as well. For Autism is a fairly new agency in Florence, and they offer a lot of programming for families. So if you're looking for not only education, but recreational opportunities in that area, that's an excellent one to go to. And then what previously was called the South Carolina Autism Academy in Columbia is now the UNAM Center for Neurodevelopment. And this is kind of a unique program because they offer therapy for students who don't need all-day therapy. So they have after-school programming, they have summer camps that follow very specific therapies with registered BCBAs, another really good agency if you're looking for that type of service. Within your own school districts, parents may not realize that there are a lot of services in the school district, and educators as well need to know that these groups are available. These people are available if they have questions to ask about a student that they're teaching. So most school districts will have an ombudsperson. For the educator, academic and behavior coaches are always available. Access them to see what's going on in gen ed classes, to see how your teaching might be improved for those children in particular who are accessing the general education curriculum. Your IEP team, for the parents to be truly a part of that IEP team, to share information with a whole IEP team. It's important for educators to be able to have conversations with all of those out there because no one is an expert in autism. You need everyone's input in order to learn and provide those students what they need. School social workers can often help parents to maneuver those complex systems, applying for services, finding out exactly what you need, following up on the services, as can school psychologists. So being able to access these people within a district and providing parents the opportunity to access these persons within the school district is a very important role for educators. So educators, what do you need in terms of resources? A couple things to keep in mind is that any training that you receive should be evidence-based. There are a lot of fun trainings out there, but you need to make sure that they are evidence-based, based on those evidence-based strategies. See if there are certifications that you can earn. And whenever you're working within modules, working with a training, see if they have some resources that includes data templates, other resources that you can actually take to the classroom and use there. Look for resources that are vetted to share with parents, because parents who are trying to find information are just going to find so much out there. Give them some good resources by your we're looking for services and what type of services they want, and be sure that they can access, or you may have a parent center in your school that allows parents to access a computer and thus the internet to apply. Options you need for students as they are able to advocate for themselves and even for their rights in the community. So a couple things to remember. I was with you tip, quit taking it personally. When you work with individuals with autism, sometimes your feelings can get hurt. Sometimes there can be a very rough day. And I try to tell educators it's not because they're against you. Everyone's learning. And sometimes the path can be rough as we learn. So shake it off and come back the next day. We're so excited that we have those teachers who work so hard with our students who have autism. We truly value you in our systems. Make sure that you're collaborating with others. Like I said, no one is an expert in autism. You're not expected to be. When you work together, everyone learns and you get the information you need. And lastly, it's important to educate yourself. So when you have the opportunity to participate in something that is vetted and something that is evidence-based, when you have the opportunity to participate in a training, take advantage of that and share. Have a list of resources that you can access again through the website. And there is my contact information if you ever need me. All right. It's easiest to get me through your emails and send you more resources if you need them. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Give you a moment through the chat website there. If you don't, I believe we are finished. I wanted to make sure that we value your time. If you have questions, feel free to email me. Yes, I'll put my contact information up one more time. If you have questions, feel free to email me if you don't want to ask them. Can everybody see that? And I will, again, answer your emails, and we can engage in conversations so that your needs, in particularly as a family or as an educator, can be met. All right, Danielle?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
All right, are we good? Do we see any other questions that I need to answer?
Oh, I see one that just came in. It's indicating that they just like to get more training.
Okay. And if they email me, I'm going to come down off the chair again. If they email me, I'll be glad to go ahead and provide them some opportunities for trainings. We are going to have an autism conference early next year, in which a lot of training will be offered along with CEUs, so that will be a qualified training for you as well. I am also available to come out to your schools, to your community groups, to your family groups, and offer training to you as well. Have any of the school districts become Medicaid autism providers? Yes, they have. That is fairly new to school districts. That can be a very complex system, again, to maneuver even for school districts, but we do have some that are qualified Medicaid autism providers. And you would have to check individually with your districts to see if they are filing for that. Are South Carolina resident students eligible for the program offered through UNC? Yes, you definitely are. That program is offered to anyone. You would just have to go and, again, apply for that program. That is a nationally recognized program. All right, I think we got all the questions answered. Let's see. Can you send a copy? Danielle, you on it? Do you have the emails of all the participants?
You cut out a little bit, Dr. Raiford. I didn't hear.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Do you have the emails of all the participants?
I will have them. What we can do is we can, if you'd like, we can go ahead and share that PowerPoint presentation with all of them.
Yeah, that would be fine. If you go ahead, you've got my permission to go ahead and do that. And I can also include some other resources as they need it. Somebody asked, Edna said, where's the program? The TEACH program is located at the University of North Carolina, right across the borderline here.
I also see that we have a question under Q&A. It says, what type of interventions do you suggest for high-functioning autism that refuse to do classroom work and have behavioral problems?
Coming from this perspective, it's hard to say exactly what type of behavior problems you're having. And a lot of people will stick with very specific therapies. Because autism is so individualized, it really is a matter of, okay, when is this behavior occurring? What do you think is motivating it? You have to track those trends specifically for that person and that behavior. You've got to determine a motivation to get this person working. We have a lot of kids who are high functioning with autism who are not motivated to do the work that they need to do. So in that case, it really is a matter of really good data tracking to determine where these where these problems are coming from, where these challenges are coming from, in order to determine what kind of practice is the best to support that student. You're welcome, Marsha Robinson. Hope you got something good from this. If you go to one of the modules through the Affirm website, they have a really good module on tracking behavior data in order to determine what type of practice you need to use to remediate a very specific behavior. So I'd recommend that you go there if you're struggling with a student who has some challenging behaviors.
Dr. Raiford, that same person asked if they could email you to get information about trainings for a school counselor.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Please email me and I'll provide you those resources. We love it when our school counselors get involved. And Sonya Gayles, who is our behavior consultant for the state, she's also joined us. She has to.
I'm actually on the line.
There you are. Hey, Sonya.
How are you?
Good, good. And Sonya has some real good resources when it comes to behaviors. So, yeah, if you email me, I'll make sure I bring her on there and we can work together to find some resources for you.
Sounds good.
All right. All right. Any other questions that you see?
No, ma'am, I'm not seeing any at this moment.
All right. All right. Well, again, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me. I'll be glad.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this
I can
out.
give you what you need.
And I will be sure to send everyone a copy of the PowerPoint presentation who attended. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.